Let's talk about broadcast first. So broadcast is defined as one to many. Radio, one to many. TV, one to many. Live show, one to many. Magazine, newspaper, one to many. Right? This is broadcast. So psychologically, whether we're aware of it or not, whether we believe it or not, and whether we like it or not, in a broadcast situation, the crowd greatly factors in to our thought process and ultimately to our decision making. Right? The crowd has information that we get. Right? If we run into a crowd and everybody's running out because the building's on fire and we're not aware of it, we're getting information from that crowd like, this is bad. Now, do I want to be here? You know what I mean? And if you're a regular person, you're running the other way. If you're a firefighter, you're like, this is the right place. This is where we need to be. But it affects how we think about everything. This is a hardwire phenomenon, a reality in human beings. Not a phenomenon, it's a reality. We're hardwired for what's called social proof. We watch what everybody's doing in the crowd, and then we make decisions based on that information if we're going to do it or we're not going to do it. But we can't ignore the crowd and what they're doing. As much as you think you can, you can't. So this is so powerful. You're so hardwired for it. It's how you learn to walk and talk. As a baby, everybody was doing it, right? And then you wanted to do it too. That looks like fun. There's some energy going back and forth here. They seem to understand each other. I want to do that. That guy's gotten from point A to point B fast. Well, look at that. I'm going to do that too, right? So you start to make that happen. Social proof is how you know when you go to a brand new movie theater and the movie ends, you know where to throw out your empty popcorn bucket because you just follow the crowd, right? There's no stress there. You know you're going to figure it out, okay? I think of the famous scene in A Few Good Men with Tom Cruise when he's in court and he's got Noah Wyle on the stand and his opposing counsel, who is Kevin Bacon, they're trying to prove that because, you know, a code red isn't actually in any books or manuals of the Marine Corps, therefore it doesn't exist, right? And so, you know, the Kevin Bacon's like, you know, fine, tell me where the code red is in this book. And there's 3 different books that, you know, that are here, the major Marine Corps manual, and then there's, you know, Guantanamo Bay rules and regulations, and then there's blah, blah. So it's 3 things. It's like, no, it's not in there. So then Tom Cruise does an amazing redirect, grabs the book, walks up to me, says, hey, tell me where you go to eat in this book. Like, tell me where it is that you get your meal. And Noah Wyler's like, I'm sorry, sir. He's like, yeah, just turn to the page where it says how you're going to eat and where you're supposed to eat. And he's like, well, that's not in the book, sir. And he's like, oh, so you mean to tell me that this whole time you've been at Guantanamo Bay, you've never had a meal? And Noah Wyler's like, no, 3 squares a day, sir. He's like, well, how on earth could you possibly know where the food is if it's not in this book? He's like, I just followed the crowd at chow time, right? That's social proof. Social proof is so powerful that when, let's use an illustration here. Let's take Axl Rose in a sold-out stadium, 100,000 people. We're all there to have a great time. And he reaches in his pocket and pulls out a cell phone. He's like, everybody get your cell phone up in the air. Come on, right? And we all do it. We all are like, shh, here we go. Some of us do it because Axl told us to, but most of us do it. Why? Because everybody else is doing it, right? Social proof. Here's another really sort of benign way to think about this. Another benign illustration. Think about a slow burn standing ovation. The one that takes a while to develop. You're sitting down, maybe it's at a artistic performance, a concert or something, or maybe it's at church, right? And some people start to stand up. You know, people standing up, okay? And we're still clapping, some more people stand up. We're still clapping, some more people. Now, and whether you believe it or not, whether you're aware of it or not, whether you like it or not, you now have a lot of information from the crowd, and you're having to process this information to make a decision based on your actions, right? So as they're standing up, I mean, pretty soon, is enough people going to stand up, or is it going to burn down? Do I think enough about this that I'm going to stand up? Or if half the crowd is standing up now, you get to the point where you're like, oh my gosh, like, am I making a statement by sitting down now? And, therefore not standing. And is that the statement that I want to make? Right? So whatever decision you come to, you have to process all that information. That's how the crowd works. Here's another example, like your group of friends, your besties, right? There's this group of friends that you have that are comfortable. They know you, you know them. A new one comes in through another friend, somebody the crowd doesn't know. And let's say that person rubs you wrong. Well, you may say something about it, and you may not like it. Of course, you're not going to like it because they rubbed you wrong. But my point being that they're going to, if the rest of the crowd seems to be getting along with that person okay, then maybe you go into hyper-focus, your antennas go up, and maybe that person inside your soul is like on super double secret probation or something. But you're going to probably go along and give another chance or two to see if maybe you missed something because you've got all this information from your crowd to the contrary about how you feel, right? That is radio, or that is broadcast, right? That's one to many. So the crowd factors in, okay? It's so powerful, social proof is, and this exists on digitals too, but it's just a different way. We have to think about it a different way. But it's so powerful that social proof will make you go against, or can make you go against your core values, right? Peer pressure. Your parents are always worried about that growing up. Why did you have a cocktail? Why were you drinking at that party in high school? Well, my friends Bobby and Joe were. Bobby and Joe drove their car off a cliff. Would you go with them? Your parents. I've had that conversation. How many times have you had that with your parents, right? So they're working against social proof to try to get you to think for yourself. It still exists beyond that, right? So that's where we get our core values from. But I think about Berkeley, UC Berkeley. That is other side of the bay from San Francisco. It is undeniably one of the top 1 or 2 most expensive places to live in the country. It's also not a cheap school. It's a very expensive school. So I think we can safely say that the general the general student body of that school, there's some exceptions in there, but generally the student body of that school did not come from the trailer park or from the ghetto. They didn't come from the poorest parts of the country. They came from middle class, upper middle class, wealthy, or like ridiculously wealthy families. And therefore, they know beyond a reasonable doubt that it's not okay to riot and destroy private business property out in the street. And it's not okay to physically assault another human being for anything other than self-defense. But yet, it still happens on a regular basis because if they don't like a speaker that comes to that school, things get out of control to the extent that the city's, these are just facts, that the city has to spend $600,000 in extra law enforcement to keep everybody from getting out of control. It's a riot. Same thing with, like we used the Guns N' Roses example when they were famously 4 hours late for a show and the crowd goes crazy and tears apart the venue. Why did they do it when they know it's not okay? Because everybody else is doing it. That's how powerful it is, right? We want to use this psychological reality to our advantage, but we have to understand how it works. A massive example of this would be Sunday, February 9th, 1964, which was the very first American television appearance of the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show, where they went on that show and played 5 songs over the course of that show to an audience of 73 million households. 73 million households. When the United States at the time was about 191 million, was about the how many people lived in this country. You're talking about the Beatles 5 different times in 1 hour reached just a little less than 40% of the population of a country. So I think about what happened on Monday, the next day, right? So every single school across the United States, in the biggest cities and the smallest faded map dots, you can say with accuracy that 30 to 40% of the kids in that school were freaking out and talking about what they saw watching the Beatles. And the conversations were, somebody saw it, they were telling the story, freaking out about what they saw. There was also somebody else in that conversation that was friends with the person telling the story who didn't see it, but's pretending they did because they want to kind of be in the cool kids part of this conversation. And then there's the people who didn't see it and are saying, no, I didn't see it. Like, what I missed? And it was like, oh my God, now those people are freaking out. Same thing, by the way, in every single job site, every single business, every water cooler across the United States, from the biggest cities to the smallest faded map dots, same conversation. 38% of those people were talking about what they saw the night before. That creates a lot of social proof, man. That was the power of broadcast.